The timing question in Kenya has two problems layered on top of each other, and most travel advice addresses only one of them. The first problem is the migration. The wildebeest migration. The movement of over 1 million gnus and several 100,000 zebras and gazelles between Tanzania's Serengeti and Kenya's Masai Mara is the event that anchors most Kenya itineraries and the reason most travelers think carefully about when to go. It's also, uniquely among the world's major wildlife spectacles, an event whose timing is genuinely unpredictable from year to year in a way that makes best month an unstable answer. The migration responds to rainfall. When the rains come, the grass grows, and the herds follow the grass. When the rains are late, or early, or heavier than usual in one region, the migration shifts accordingly. The famous Mara River crossings, the moment when the herds ford the crocodile-filled river in mass movements that are among the most dramatic wildlife events on Earth, typically concentrate between July and October, with a statistical peak in August and September, but this is a probability distribution rather than a schedule. There are years when significant crossings happen in July and years when the main herds don't arrive at the Mara until September. There are years when the crossings are frequent and dramatic and years when the herds linger on the Tanzanian side, and the crossings are few. No booking made 6 months in advance can guarantee the timing of a specific crossing, because the migration doesn't work on a booking calendar. It works on grass. Understanding this changes the entire emotional architecture of a migration time trip. The traveler who arrives in August expecting to witness a river crossing and builds their week around that expectation is gambling with a natural event. The traveler who arrives in August understanding that the crossings may happen on any given day or may not happen during their specific stay, and who is there to experience the Mara ecosystem in its full seasonal drama rather than to collect a specific event, is positioned to be genuinely rewarded regardless of whether they see a crossing or not. The Mara in August without a river crossing is still one of the greatest wildlife environments on Earth, full of the highest density of large predators anywhere in Africa, with an energy and tension that the presence of 1 million prey animals creates even when they're not crossing anything. The crossing is extraordinary. The ecosystem that produces the crossing is also extraordinary, and making one dependent on the other is how travelers come home disappointed from one of the world's greatest destinations. The practical response to the migration's unpredictability is to stay longer rather than to try to time more precisely. 3 nights in the Mara is a gamble on the crossings. 7 nights is much better odds, not because the crossing schedule becomes more predictable over a week, but because you have more mornings and afternoons on the game drives when the herd happens to move. The guides who work the Mara full-time track the herd movements daily through networks of information that no external research can replicate. Arriving with a guide relationship, staying long enough to give the ecosystem time to perform, and holding expectations about specific events loosely, this is the framework that the migration actually rewards. Now the second problem, the Quinea beyond the Mara, which has its own entirely separate timing logic that the migration calendar doesn't address. Kenya is, ecologically, several countries in one, a geographic and ecological range that makes it unusual even within East Africa. The savannas of the Mara and Amboseli are the ones the global reputation is built on, but the country also contains the high-altitude forests and moorlands of Mount Kenya and the Aberdare Range, the semi-arid northern frontier, the Rift Valley Lakes, the mangrove-lined Swahili Coast, and the freshwater lakes of the West. Each of these ecosystems has its own seasonal character and its own timing logic, and none of them aligns perfectly with the migration calendar. The dry seasons, the long drive from June through October and the short drive from January through February, are broadly the best times for savanna safari across the country because the vegetation is low and animals concentrate at water sources, making them more visible. But within these dry seasons, there are regional differences worth understanding. Amboseli, at the foot of Kilimanjaro, is at its most spectacular in the short rains of November, when the mountain is clear of cloud in the afternoons after the morning showers and the elephant herds move through the green grass, with the full mountain visible behind them. A visual combination so specific to this park at this moment that photographers target November specifically for it, despite its being technically the rainy season. The long rains of April and May, which are the most significant wet season and the period most mainstream travel advice suggests avoiding, bring the ecosystem alive in ways the dry season doesn't. The grass grows tall. The migratory birds arrive from Europe and Asia in their millions. The newborn wildebeest calves that will drive the year's migration cycle appear across the southern Serengeti and the Mara, and the tourist numbers drop to their annual low, taking prices down with them. The birdwatching calendar is worth addressing specifically because Kenya is one of the great birding destinations in the world. Over 1,000 species have been recorded, and the timing logic for birds is almost exactly opposite to the timing logic for the big mammal safari. The November to April period, which includes the long rains and the short rains, is when Kenya receives the European and Eurasian migratory bird species that come south for the northern winter. Flamingos gather at lakes Nakuru and Bogoria in the Rift Valley in numbers that respond to rainfall and algae levels and can vary from tens of thousands to over 1 million birds at their peak, a population dynamic that makes the flamingo spectacle as variable as the wildebeest crossings, driven by conditions rather than by calendar. The April to May long rains bring the greatest diversity of bird species to the Kenyan highlands, with the forest birds of the Aberdare Range and Mount Kenya at their most active and most visible in the pre-breeding period. The Arabuko Sokoke forest on the coast, which contains several of Kenya's endemic bird species found nowhere else in the world, is most accessible in the dry season between June and October, when the trails are clear. None of these windows align with each other, and planning a Kenya trip to maximize wildlife requires choosing between them rather than trying to hit all of them simultaneously. Mount Kenya deserves specific treatment because its timing logic is the most different from the savanna calendar of anything in the country. The mountain, Africa's second highest peak after Kilimanjaro, straddling the equator with permanent glaciers at its highest points, has two primary trekking seasons: January through February and July through August, corresponding to the periods when the weather on the mountain is most settled and the summit attempts most reliable. The long rains of March through May and the short rains of October and November make the upper mountain wet and cold in ways that significantly increase the difficulty and the risk of the standard trekking routes. The mountain receives far fewer trekkers than Kilimanjaro, partly because it's technically more demanding. The standard Siramanchagoria traverse requires multiple days above 4,000 meters and summit attempts reach close to 5,000 meters, and partly because the Kenya Safari Circuit doesn't naturally connect to a serious mountain trekking expedition, so most Kenya visitors never combine the two. For the traveler who wants both safari and mountain in the same trip, January and February offer the unusual combination of the short dry season on the savanna, the second best period for big game viewing after the long dry, and settled conditions on the mountain. This is also the period when the Laikipia Plateau between the mountain and the northern frontier is at its most accessible and most rewarding, with the private conservancies of Ol Pejeta, Lewa, and Barana operating in dry season conditions with excellent wildlife density and none of the vehicle pressure of the Mara. The coast requires its own seasonal calendar because the Swahili Coast operates on the monsoon system that governs the entire western Indian Ocean. The southeast trade winds, the Kusi, blow strongly from April through September, bringing heavy swells to the south-facing beaches and making the sea conditions rough for most coastal activities. The lighter northeast monsoon, the Kaskazi, blows from November through March, bringing calmer seas, clearer water for diving and snorkeling, and the conditions that make the Dhow culture of the coast historically possible. The period between the monsoons, October and April, are transition months with variable conditions. The best months for the coast are December through March. Calm seas, the best diving visibility, the warmest water, and the arrival of whale sharks off the coast in the Watamu and Malindi area from October through February, which makes the coast between those months one of the better places in Africa to swim with the largest fish on Earth. This coastal timing creates an interesting combination opportunity with the Mara. The best Mara months of July through October correspond to the Kusi season when the coast is rough and less rewarding, while the best coast months of December through March correspond to the short dry season on the savanna, that is the second best safari window. A trip in January or February can therefore do both at close to their best, combining the dry season game viewing of Amboseli or Laikipia with the calm sea diving and Dhow culture of the Watamu or Lama coast, without the either-or timing conflict that a July trip creates. So, what is the honest answer to when to visit Kenya? The migration peak of July through October is the right answer for the specific traveler whose primary goal is to witness the Mara ecosystem at its maximum drama. The full herds present, the crossings potentially occurring, the predator density highest, the dry season visibility at its peak. But the caveat that no booking can guarantee a crossing must be held genuinely, and the trip should be built to receive the ecosystem rather than to execute a checklist against it. January through February is the right answer for the traveler who wants good savanna conditions with lower tourist numbers than the July-October peak, combined with the option to trek Mount Kenya or explore the northern conservancies in their dry season character, or to finish on a coast that's at its best for water conditions. November, despite being technically the short rains, is the right answer for the specific traveler whose primary goal is Amboseli and the Kilimanjaro backdrop. The combination of afternoon mountain clarity and fresh green vegetation and newborn calves and lower tourist density makes this one of the more consistently underrated Kenya timing windows. April and May, the long rains, are the right answer for the birder, for the budget-conscious traveler willing to accept muddy roads and heavier vegetation in exchange for the lowest prices and the smallest crowds of the year, and for anyone who wants to experience the Kenyan landscape in its most dramatically alive state, green, wet, full of the young animals and migratory birds that the dry season's famous predator activity depends on. The coast in December through March is the right answer for anyone combining sea and savanna. And underneath all of these specific answers, the right framework for Kenya timing is the same one that applies to the safari itself. Replace the idea of an optimal fixed answer with the idea of an informed choice between genuinely different experiences. The Mara in August and the Mara in April are not better and worse versions of the same thing. They are different ecosystems in different seasonal states, each with things to offer that the other doesn't have. The best Kenya trip isn't the one timed to the theoretically ideal month. It's the one time to the specific Kenya you actually came to find, with the expectations calibrated to what that specific version of the country delivers, rather than the version the brochure always seems to be selling. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, smash that like button and subscribe to When to Travel. We're all about helping you make smarter travel decisions. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And hey, if you think your friends need this, share it. Comment below with your next destination or your biggest travel question. I'm reading all of them. Let's go.